Hey there, it's Jody. I host the show that you're listening to right now, which has been going for 5 years and is gearing up for its biggest year ever next year as we head towards America 250. And I'm here to tell you that we are only able to do this and grow and be ambitious at a time when public media and radio and podcasting are in a really tough spot. We've only been able to do this because we are part of the Radiotopia community. And more specifically, because listeners to this show and other shows in the Radiotopia collective have stepped up to become members and supported Radiotopia directly. Being a part of Radiotopia means not just that we get some support from Radiotopia, but also that we are in community with other hosts and shows who I deeply respect and admire, like Nate DeMeo of The Memory Palace, Rishi Hirway of Song Exploder, the great Avery Trufelman of Articles of Interest, not to mention all the new incredible shows like Try Hard and Proxy. These are some of the best radio makers in the world, and we're all in it together. This community spirit also extends to the fundraiser itself. We split the money that is raised during our annual fundraiser, which is where you come in. Your generous gifts don't just support our team, but they cast a vote for this kind of media. Independent, plucky, ambitious, which, by the way, is how I describe you. Yeah, you. Independent, plucky, ambitious. Doesn't that sound nice? It would mean so much if you invest in our community of creators by making your tax-deductible donation very easy at our website, thisdaypod.com. And two more important things. As a bonus, when you donate before the end of the year, December 31st, your gift is going to be matched by a generous PRX donor. So double your impact right now. Also, when you donate, you will be invited to our holiday mixtope on December 4th, where all the producers, we're all going to get together and share these little audio love letters to each other, and you'll be able to listen in and join in on the community. It's going to be a really great event. We're very excited to try it, but it only works if a bunch of people like you contribute and join in. So head over to thisdaypod.com. You will see a link right there. That's thisdaypod.com to support Radiotopia. You are a huge part of this community. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Let's talk for a minute about something people don't always love talking about: money. Like a lot of you, I've always stressed about my finances, and I've also stressed about stressing about my finances. The picture just never quite comes into focus. But that started to change for me about a month ago when I started using Monarch Money. I finally loaded in all my accounts, debts, transactions. It was quick, it was actually kind of fun, and suddenly everything made sense. It's like I was staring at a magic eye poster, and finally it clicked and I saw that sailboat. I can't afford the sailboat, but I think you get the metaphor. Feel organized and confident in your finances with Monarch, an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clear interface on your laptop or on your phone. Just in the last month since using Monarch, I've been able to see where my money's coming from, where it's going, and from there I've been able to budget, set goals, and have real conversations about what matters most. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code THISDAY at monarch.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarch.com with code THISDAY. This day is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. You chose to hit play on this podcast today. Smart choice. Make another smart choice with Auto Quote Explorer to compare rates from multiple car insurance companies all at once. Try it at progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy. Hello and welcome to This Day, a history show from Radiotopia. My name is Jody Avirgan. Today, some Sunday context, where we provide new conversations and favorites from the archives that give a little historical context for the moment we're in right now. And today, some context for a really great new historical TV series. I had a couple long flights last week, and on them I binged the new Netflix show Death by Lightning, a 4-part series that tells the story of the unexpected rise of James Garfield to secure the nomination and then win the presidency in 1880. And the other main focus of the show is on the man who would eventually murder Garfield, Charles Guiteau. The murder was a mix of personal vendetta and mental delusions from Guiteau, but also the product of a very contentious and factional GOP politics of the time. Michael Shannon plays Garfield, and James McFadden plays Guiteau. Another key character in this story is played by Nick Offerman, and that is Chester Arthur. He is from New York, the kind of perfect product of corrupt New York machine politics, totally not fit for the role of vice president, but somehow he ends up in that role. And then, of course, after Garfield's assassination, he ends up as president. Everyone, including himself, basically admitted that he was in way over his head. Death by Lightning mostly focuses on the Garfield campaign and the assassination, and Arthur's stepping into the role happens kind of right towards the end of the last episode, and he gets one of those text cards on the screen that reads like, Chester Arthur became president, and he went on to do X, Y, and Z, and then, the music swells and the credits run. Well, lucky for us, we have done an episode that kind of picks up right where that lets off and really focuses on Chester Arthur himself. So here is the episode we recorded a couple years ago on Chester Arthur becoming president, how he ended up in charge, how he took charge. Take a listen. And if you haven't checked out Death by Lightning, you should give it a shot. I really loved it, thought it was very entertaining and very educational about a very interesting moment in our politics. Obviously, you don't have to have seen the show in order to listen to this episode. Here we go. Hello and welcome to This Day in Esoteric Political History from Radiotopia. My name is Jody Avirgan. This day, September 22nd, 1881, Vice President Chester Arthur takes over as President of the United States, retaking the oath of office in the wake of James Garfield's death. Of this moment, the New York Times wrote, quote, Chester Arthur is about the last man who would be considered eligible for the position. And the Times is generally considered to be one of the more supportive outlets when it comes to Chester Arthur. They were in his camp, and they're saying that he is the last man considered eligible for this position. So it is a very twisty, turny story of how Arthur came to take this oath, and it's oddly kind of moving in a way, his stumbling into this position. So let's talk about it here, as always, Nicole Hemmer of Vanderbilt and Kelly Carter-Jackson of Wellesley. Hey there.
Hello, Jody.
Hey there.
1881, Chester Arthur. Is this our first Chester Arthur? Hard to say.
So.
We're on a nice little 1800s, 1700s run here, by the way, which is nice. But I don't know if we've really done a ton on Arthur. Did people call him Chet? It's in our prep that the people called him Chet.
I'd like to think so. I think he's one of those string of Gilded Age presidents who nobody remembers the name of. So the idea that anyone would remember his nickname seems really unlikely. But I like Chet Arthur. I'm running with
Chet,
it.
Come on over.
That's right. He's a bit of a brat. I like it.
He has a last name that's a first name. So, I assume people would just call him Arthur. But,
He spent his whole life being like, no, it's Chester, not Arthur. So how does he end up in the position of VP before we talk about how he ends up becoming president?
So he starts off as a lawyer, as many politicians do, and was often fighting for pretty good causes. He advocated for Black Americans. He helped to desegregate New York City streetcars. But like many politicians in this era, he is basically a machine politician, which is to say he is part of one of these big urban machines that is both useful in that it helps voters and immigrants and gets services done for people, and also deeply corrupt, full of graft. And he is a beneficiary of a lot of that corruption and graft because he is part of the spoils system that keeps the government running in the 19th century. This idea that if your party wins an election, you get to give out the goodies, and the goodies are well-paying jobs. And Arthur is the recipient of one of those well-paying jobs in the 1870s. Yeah,
really the only job he's ever awarded was to be the New York Customs House Collector. And he has a pretty decent salary, like $6,500 a year. That's not nothing in the 19th century. That's decent money.
And a lot of patronage power, and probably a little skimming off the top.
A little bit of grease in the wheels behind the scenes.
I mean, if you're responsible for hiring out 1,000 jobs, over 1,000 jobs, people are beholden to you. People are looking to you to give them good positions. I mean, it's a job that's sort of ripe for corruption.
Well, because it comes with something called the moiety system, which is if you are this kind of customs house collector, that means you're keeping track of the things that are coming into the country. So whenever somebody tries to evade the tariff, if somebody's trying to smuggle in goods, as the customs house collector, you get to keep part of the booty and you get money from everybody you bust. So he has that $6,500. He has whatever he's being slipped for the jobs. But then he actually has this legit income that's coming from busting tariff busters and smugglers.
So, listeners, if you learn one thing from this episode, it's that if you get transported back to the 1870s, try and be a customs house collector.
Oh, yeah. You want me to look the other way?
Yeah.
Pay up.
Yeah. I'm getting paid either way, buddy.
It seems like a pretty good gig until someone like Rutherford B. Hayes becomes president, because Hayes becomes president and, as we've talked about on the show, very reform-minded, trying to sort of revamp civil service, go after corruption. So he fires Chester Arthur in 1878, comes after him. And then this largely becomes the story of American politics in the late 1870s into the 1880s. The Republican National Convention in 1880 is fractured really around this question of corruption. And it's basically deadlocked around Grant and another person named Senator James Blaine. And as we've talked about in conventions of this era before, deadlocked between two people, two factions fighting. They can't resolve. And sometimes it's nice to be the third person off to the side who hasn't gotten much attention until everyone is souring on the two main people. And that is kind of how James Garfield just sort of slips in and says, okay, well, you can't decide between Grant and Blaine. Well, here I am. And so Garfield becomes the nominee, and then he selects Chester Arthur largely because of the New York ties, right? And there's still machine politics in New York that he needs to appease. Even if Arthur doesn't have a formal role at the moment, he realizes it's a good look for a very powerful bloc. So is that basically the story of how Arthur ends up being VP?
Kind of, sort of, right man for the right time, sort of like, you'll do.
You will do is about how both of those people were put on the ticket. Nobody's first choice for anything, but when you're part of the machine and you can bring along a state like New York, then you become a pretty important person. These were not men with like huge national reputations, but they also weren't men who really knew one another. This is also pretty common for tickets in this era. So they didn't really get along, in part because they had this clash over this question of political appointee corruption and reform. Arthur was anti-reform because he loved having the wheels greased by corruption. Yeah. And so he was kind of on the outs of the administration after Garfield won and was inaugurated in March because they just didn't see eye to eye.
Yeah, he basically gets banished back to New York City, right? And
he doesn't even get to live in Washington.
Yeah. Just go back home. Go back to your fancy cigars and fancy clothes.
That's right.
High life. He was probably like, fine. Like I like high society.
All my clothes are back in New York. I'm not going to move my 80 pairs of pants down to D.C. anyway.
Yeah.
I know.
A lot of short daily news podcasts focus on just one story. But right now, you probably need more. On Up First from NPR, we bring you 3 of the world's top headlines every day in under 15 minutes. Because no one story can capture all that's happening in this big, crazy world of ours on any given morning. Listen now to the Up First podcast from NPR.
You know about HelloFresh, right? HelloFresh, the #1 meal kit in America, making home cooking easier with chef-crafted recipes and fresh ingredients delivered straight to your door. You know about HelloFresh. But something you may not know is that this fall, they have completely taken things to a new level. HelloFresh has doubled its menu. That's right, doubled its menu. You can now choose from 100 options each week, including new seasonal dishes and recipes from all around the world. And healthier ones too. Recipes featuring seafood and high protein. I recently cooked scallops with asparagus and potatoes. I'd never really cooked scallops at home, but they tasted great, were fun to make, and boom, just like that, I'm now someone who can prepare scallops at home. As we head into colder weather and home cooking season, it is time to check out the best way to cook, which just got better. Go to HelloFresh.com/thisday10FM now to get 10 free meals plus a free item for life. 1 box per active subscription, free meals applied as a discount on the first box. New subscribers only, varies by plan. Once again, that's HelloFresh.com/thisday10FM to get 10 free meals and a free item for life. And then the summer of 1881, so this is the beginning of the first year of Garfield's presidency, Garfield is badly wounded and then eventually killed by a man named Charles Guiteau. I don't know if we've done the Garfield assassination on the show here, but Guiteau is sort of deranged. He's sort of got political aspirations, and those play in here because Guiteau, as he's firing a shot at Garfield, he shouts, "I am a stalwart and Arthur will be president." So that puts this idea out there. Yeah. They're like, wait a minute. Did this guy assassinate the president in order to get the vice president who's just like chilling in New York? Did he do it on his behalf? So this starts like a real, rightly so, conspiracy theory and worry that the vice president has now set up an assassination of the sitting president.
It's not a good look.
It's not a great look. And it's understandable. It's a surprise that it's not a longer-lived conspiracy theory because we've got all the pieces there.
Yeah.
I mean, he literally shouts the guy's name as he's killing the president. Yeah.
And it takes a little bit for Garfield to die. And during that period, Arthur's in New York and he's just like, first of all, I didn't do it, guys. And then also, like, am I going to become president? What does it mean that I become president? I've only ever been a customs house officer. How am I going to run the country? So he's having his own kind of existential crisis. And then Garfield kicks it.
Yeah.
And
so how does Arthur handle that moment? Because I think he does, in some sense, rise a little to the occasion, right?
I think so. Sorry.
He breaks down weeping. I mean, like he's trying. I think in those final days, Arthur is probably racked with guilt. Maybe not because he's culpable, but because he doesn't want to be seen as culpable. And so because of that, people talk about him weeping publicly and grieving this man. And so I think it created a narrative that, maybe he didn't do this, and maybe what sort of man who wants this would be this grief-stricken and would be this sort of overtaken. And I think there's a lot of humility in assuming the Oval Office. Like, you really have to sort of have your bearings about yourself, and I think that fear of taking on that role was part of that too.
Yeah,
I do think that there's something interesting that happens when Arthur becomes president, though. First of all, he's facing an enormous amount of criticism. Jody quoted the New York Times at the beginning, and that was the best that Arthur got during this period. Members of the cabinet resigned. There are people who accuse him of not being a U.S. citizen, people who accuse him of being behind the assassination. But he takes everything very seriously. He immediately takes the oath of office because it's done by a New York state judge. He takes the oath of office again when he gets to D.C., this time with a Supreme Court justice who can swear him in just to, belts and suspenders. Let's make sure that this, like when Obama redid his oath of office.
I was just about to say that,
You want to make sure that you're actually legitimately president, especially when there are so many people who are questioning it. And then he does something that suggests that the weight of his new role was really pressing on him, and he becomes an advocate of civil service reform. He moves away from his position as somebody who supports patronage and says, I'm picking up Garfield's mantle and I'm going to pass this legislation, which is a pretty serious turnabout, and it suggests that having all of that power doesn't necessarily corrupt everyone who experiences it.
Yeah, he sort of had a come to Jesus moment where he was like, this is my moment to sort of make things right, to turn the tide. And he does. I mean, he hires people in positions. He gives people tons of jobs. Actually, about 30,000 posts are created in his administration. But yeah, he starts, different various acts into law. He kind of becomes like a progressive president, I might say, like, given especially what he was up against.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And so I think, so many stories of, well, not just political careers, but all careers are about sort of circumstance and happenstance and sort of a moment meets you. But it is hard to overstate kind of how, this guy was the sort of like begrudging choice of a begrudging choice.
Right.
He then is sort of thrust into this moment, and I think he does largely rise to it. And, look, we can end on the sort of larger idea that I think a lot of people have talked about. If people talk about Chester Arthur over the last 6 years, which they don't do too much, but I think people have pointed out that like there are instances when someone who maybe people didn't expect to become president become president, and they rise to the moment and they understand the gravity of the situation, and it sort of and they meet the gravity of it. And I think Donald Trump has not, and some people made that comparison with Chester Arthur in a sort of interesting way.
Mm-hmm. You say that about Johnson too.
Yeah, right. No, totally. Yeah. And especially that mix.
You can't say that about Andrew Johnson. I mean, no Johnson.
Yeah.
So we're clear.
Yes. But no, I was thinking about LBJ during this conversation too, because there was that sort of mix of tragedy and gravity and emotion and conspiracy and and ambition and all those things swirling. And then how do you just kind of meet that moment? But yeah, for sure. So anyway, I'm glad we got to old Chet Arthur on this show.
More Chet.
Give him his flowers.
Good old Chet.
Good old Chet. But we will leave it there. Nicole Hammer, thanks to you as always.
Thank you, Jody.
And Kelly Carter Jackson, thanks to you.
My pleasure.
Radiotopia. From